Thanks for joining us and welcome to the Migraine Whisperer, which is hands-on solutions for debilitating problems. And this week we're due to talk about men and migraines, the cause and what to do. And I've had a few technical glitches, but that will not stop the show. So today we're going to talk about men and migraines and research on the same topic, because I've been doing a lot of work towards the show. And as an ex-engineer, previously I was an engineer for 15 years and a bit of a geek. I did like my research. So I did various projects, obviously, in both in engineering and in a chiropractic school, research projects. So just for the lay person, I just want to talk about a few ways to research migraines, what's going on and what should be happening and what to look for. Okay, so just before we dive in, I just want to say, of course, this is not health advice, it's just entertainment. This is my doctor's office behind me, but actually is a green screen, although I do have this exact same office. It's just my wife is working in the office at the moment and we have people in, so I can't crash. So but anyway, the point is, obviously I am a chiropractor, but I'm not your chiropractor. We need to do an exam and get a relationship going, so I know what's going on. So don't take this as any sort of health advice for you specifically. And also you will hear stories, testimonies from people. They are their own experience. Everyone is different. Everyone is completely different, like fingerprints. We're all very different. So one person's experience will not necessarily be yours. And just to sum all that up, I'm going to use it. Edutainment only. Okay, right. Enough of the silliness. Let's get on. And research men and migraines. I'm going to talk about men and migraines as well. I did a phenomenal interview this morning. I was trying to get it uploaded, but there's a few glitches with it. So I'm going to get that sorted out for next time. And I'm also going to have someone on stream with us. But so what's the difference between men and women and migraines? Obviously, you'll have heard me talk in the past. One of them, I'm a chiropractor in Canada. I've the last 5 or 6 years, I've noticed that by becoming more expert at adjusting the top of the neck, I'm getting some incredible results with people that have had long-term migraines. And by long-term, they could be like decades in some cases. Some cases, a couple of years. In most cases, at least 10 years, possibly longer. And I've got some theories of why we're getting the great results. There is, some research. Most of it's pretty limited, but the fact is, I'm getting the facts. I'm not trying to fit the research to the facts. I'm just trying to fit the research to the results. I'm just trying to see what research is out there to explain the results that I am actually getting. So what's the difference with migraines between men and women? Now, to start with, 3 times more women get migraines than men. And I do want to talk about that in another show. So obviously, if you like the sort of stuff I'm covering on this channel, Dr. Craig Hindson, we talk about hints and tips to help migraines, headaches, upper back and lower back issues. And if that's the sort of thing that interests you, do go down below, spank the like, boop the subscribe and ding that notification bell to all. The other thing, really important, if you have friends or family members that have suffered with migraines for a while, send them the link to the playlist of the Migraine Whisperer, because there's tons of research, there's tons of resources there for them, stretches and exercises and such like. Okay, so what's the difference? 3 times more women get migraines than men, as I mentioned. 17% of the female population. Okay, so in Canada, we have around about 41 million people. So obviously half of those, let's say 20 million, are female. So 17% of that. You should never do maths on stream, but I'm going to punt for it. 3.4 million women in Canada have migraines. Okay, and it's 6% guys, so a third of that effectively. Although that figure varies depending on what research you look at, but let's call it 6%, so a third of that. Just over a million guys have migraines here in Canada. And as I say, in my research, and when you go to research papers, this one here is the migraine and risk of cardiovascular disease in men. There's a couple of things you need to look at. One is the quality of the paper. Where does it come from? Okay. Two, are there any vested interests? The people that are writing the paper, do they have vested interests? And that should be declared. Sometimes it's not declared, but obviously the people are being funded from somewhere to do the research. So that's an aspect of bias that just needs to be taken into account. And then, I've read these reports, and there's some interesting facts. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know. I did not realize that in men, they are hypothesizing that there is a link between migraines and testosterone production, okay, which obviously will affect the reproductive system or affect the development of muscles. That is something that I never really looked into before, but obviously now, as part of my duty to you, I've got to get a little bit more thorough in what I'm doing and just look at other avenues. This isn't chiropractic information. This is just pure research. This is why I don't use it, because I'm a hands-on guy. And they did a study of 20,000 participants, okay? 20,000 participants. And in the first 5 years, they were noted to have migraines. Now, I find it that when you read deeply into these, the sensationalized headline, when you actually read the facts actually aren't quite as sensational as the headline. So the headline, I found this paper by going to the internet, typing in migraines, headaches, research, migraines male research. It gave me a very sensationalized article that said migraines cause cardiovascular disease and increase the chance of likelihood of heart attack. Okay. And when you look into it, there is a small association between one and the other. Okay. So for example, myocardial infarction, which actually means heart attack, compared, there was a big study. It was over many years. They tried to level the playing field as far as what participants of the 20,000 exercised, were on any sort of drugs, had surgeries. They tried to normalize, or at least they mentioned that they tried to normalize. But for me, there are at least 20 variables in that. And I don't know how you can normalize all the results around 20 different variables. And if you've only got a 5% increase, how those variables, have not affected that figure. So what they do have the 95% confidence interval, which is standard. And how peer reviewed this is, or how reviewed this is, I don't know. Actually, it is a pretty good quality paper, but the results aren't quite as sensational as the initial article would lead you to believe. Okay. There was an increase in stroke of 42% with people that have migraines, and an increase of death of 7% compared to non-migraineurs. But as I say, if you're having migraines, it isn't necessary. To me, the migraine is a symptom, like the red oil light going on in the car. The problem is not the migraine, and it's not the migraine that's causing there to be no oil in the car. In other words, the person dies, they had a migraine. You can't say, it could be something completely separate. To me, as a nerve system expert, as a upper cervical expert, could well be that those people had a slightly higher instance of pathology because there was interference in the nerve system. Okay, but that again is just me. That is my own hypothesis. Okay, I've no research on this, but again, when there is research, then you do have to be very careful where it's coming from, what it's actually saying when you get into it. Okay, like for example, they said that there was information on migraine in women and a heart attack, and that if you have an aura, then there's more likely. And again, the increased likelihood is very, very tiny. It's very small. And in this study, they didn't actually study auras, which is pretty key in migraines, because it would be interesting to see how that differentiated. And here's another one from the Journal of Physical Medicine, Rehab Studies and Reports. Now, this is interesting. When I saw the title, I got really quite excited. It says the association of childhood trauma with migraine in men. Okay. Now, to me, I got really excited because I thought, oh, childhood trauma, trips and falls and falling out of trees. And they've studied that, and they're trying to see how it's related. But it looks like this person was concerned with sexual abuse as children. Obviously, an increase in anxiety type chemicals after that. In particular, they were talking about PTSD as well, which again is another disease state that I'm not super familiar with, although I came back from the military and had something which was akin to that. The reason I say I'm not super familiar about it, in the UK, it tends to be military people that are classified with PTSD, but it seems to become more and more of a buzzword now, so that a lot of people are kind of getting labeled with that. And you have flashbacks. You actually see images and flashbacks. Now, I never had that, although, you know, psychosis was a part of what happened to me for a very short while back like over 15, 20 years ago. But actually, the PTSD symptoms, that one's always been pretty clear. I'm very loath to label myself as having had PTSD because that is something that colleagues of mine had, and it wasn't really what I had. Okay, but was an interesting study. There seemed to be a lot of non-related facts put together. So it looks like there was a lot of research done. They pulled together facts, but the facts weren't necessary. I couldn't see how they were causative. So, for example, there was a certain percentage of men that had been sexually abused, and it said that it's underreported because men don't like to talk about that sort of thing, which, you know, I understand 100%. And then it said X percent had migraines, and then it seemed to infer that migraines, therefore, or sexual abuse, therefore migraines. But as you'll see in the next slide that I'm going to pop up. Okay, disclaimer, as I mentioned earlier, we've already done this. So, and this one here, so this is where at the top there you have physical, chemical, emotional stress. This is one of the models of how nerve interference or vertebral subluxation in chiropractic terms can lead to nerve system interference, muscle system interference, structural interference, organ interference. Okay, this is the theory behind how chiropractic gets all the results it gets in different areas of the body. Physical, chemical, and emotional. So obviously things like sexual abuse as a child, or parents fighting, or divorces, or relationship breakups as a young adult, that's going to affect you massively, and those stresses can put pressure on the nerve system, change how the muscles function, in turn change how the nerve system functions, and the nerves, of course, communicate everywhere. You've heard me say before, if you haven't, check out the other shows. The top three bones, the occiput, the back of the head, atlas, the first bone in the neck, and axis, which is the second bone, that the first bone, which is a ring bone, it's a ring bone and actually rotates around the second bone. If those three are out of balance with one another, out of coordination with one another, that can put pressure on the nerves, and I believe also can affect CSF flow around the brain. And I believe, you know, I personally believe that's one of the reasons I get good results with people that have been diagnosed in the medical world as having migraines. Okay, so there's just so research is valuable, of course it is, but it's just one of many tenets that we use to determine the truth of something, okay, and determine why we're producing results. Okay, now how do you find research? Well, you heard, I just searched the internet and got some, and then followed a reference. Actually, in the sensationalized article that I wrote, didn't actually give me the reference. It said a Harvard study on cardiovascular disease. So then I went to Google Scholar, and to find that, you just go on Google, type Google Scholar. Now, obviously, if you're a researcher or you're a medical person, you've done a lot of research, or an engineer, or, and you've done a lot of research, then you know how to do this. This is really for the lay people here. They're interested in just finding out how true is, you know, that some home remedy is giving positive results. And then the other thing is you got to understand where you're looking. So medical research is not going to tell you about natural remedies, because medical research is to do with pharmacology. Okay, medical research is not going to tell you about chiropractic results. Okay, for chiropractic results, look for McCoy Press. McCoy Press has 3 different scientific publications that it produces a lot of really good studies. A lot of them are case studies, so they're kind of the lower level of evidence, but you could have the situation where they may have 100 or 200 case studies on exactly the same thing that you're looking at, and you can read about that. So it's almost like going to Google reviews, and you see all the reviews, and you click on them, you see what the people are saying. I mean, the weight of proof there for one isn't that much, but if there's like 500 5-star reviews saying this person's great, unless it's bots, which Google reviews are really good on, then you know it's probably the place is pretty good. Okay, so sorry, yeah, so that's Google reviews or Airbnb, which I've been using recently to find out if the place is good. If 4 people say it's good, then that's not so impressive, but if 400 people talk about it and a couple of them point the shortfalls, but overall it looks a good place or a good research paper, then you know you're onto something good. Okay, guys, right. So we didn't. Right. So next week, what we're going to do next week, we're going to dive into this a little more detail. I'm going to get some material for you. I'm going to get like an interview, and I'm also going to get someone being adjusted, or a guy being adjusted. I've got 2 great guys. One of them gave me a phenomenal interview, and I'm just so sorry I can't present it to you today, but I will get that sorted out for next time. Okay, so we're going to keep this one short and sweet. The last one was a lot longer. So thanks for your time. Thanks for coming here. Come back again next Tuesday, 5 p.m., where we're going to dive into migraines, and we're going to do part 2 of men and migraines, and we're going to look for some hands-on solutions to debilitating health problems. Okay, so have a great night, have a great morning, have a great day. Dr. Craig.